And as you probably heard, we are going to record this session today, just so it can be watched back and also shared with any colleagues you think it might be useful for. So just to introduce myself, I'm Gary Dixon and I'm the Digital and Design Manager at SFHA. We're delighted to welcome you all to this session today on cyber awareness and resilience. SFHA have been working collaboratively with Scottish Business Resilience Centre to really just reinforce the importance of cybersecurity for housing associations. I think in general, you know, it is more of a preventative measure, but it's one that if you don't keep on top of, there is a kind of growing risk to your business, and it can affect your business in a lot of different ways. And we've seen some incidents lately that tend to point towards things that can be done proactively to give you more security for your organisation and also for your staff. So today we have Declan Doyle with us. He is Head of Ethical Hacking and Client Services at SBRC. Oh. Scottish Business Resilience Centre, they are a respected voice in business resilience as well as cyber security in Scotland. They're bringing together the Scottish Government, Police Scotland and the Scottish business community. They work in a way every day that they intend to try and give every Scottish organisation skills and knowledge to protect themselves against online attacks through education and preventative training, like we're hopefully going to go through today. So just a few housekeeping notes before I pass over to Declan. We're roughly looking at about an hour-long session today, and that'll include some time for Q&A at the end. During the session, whilst Declan's presenting, we will have microphones muted. If you'd like to ask a question, you can just put up your hand using the little function at the bottom, and I'll keep an eye out if anyone is actually want to ask a question, which you can happily do using the mic, or if you'd prefer, you can just put it into the chat, and I'll make sure I either just let Declan know there's a question, or we can come to it at the end of the session. So just to remind everybody, we'll send out post-event just a recording of the presentation, as well as any kind of links or information that Declan shared that might be of use as well. So that's everything from me, and I'll hand over to Declan just now.
Thanks very much, Gary, and morning everyone. I will just pull up the presentation I've got today. So hopefully you can all see something on your screen now. Is that right?
Yep, can see that, Declan.
Perfect. So welcome to this morning's session. As Gary said, I am Declan Doyle. I'm the Head of Ethical Hacking and Client Services from the SBRC, Scottish Business Resilience Centre. And today we're going to be talking about how you can improve your cyber resilience and your cyber security with what we call cyber exercising. And I'll explain what that means in a few slides. But firstly, as Gary kind of touched on just a bit about us at the SBRC, we're a non-for-profit organisation. We're a very collaborative organisation. We work with all sorts of different bodies around Scotland and all sorts of different organisations. And effectively our aim is here on screen, our vision to make Scotland one of the safest and most resilient places to live, work and do business both on and offline. So we work with all sorts of different organisations to make that happen, and we're very happy with our partnership with the Scottish Federation of Housing Associations to help make the housing association sector as secure and resilient as it can be. We were talking about collaboration there. I just want to highlight one of the partnerships that we have. We are part of what we call the Cyber Scotland Partnership, and that is a group of 16 key strategic partners representing all sorts of aspects of the community in Scotland, where we all come together with the aim of making Scotland as secure as it can be. And we try and publish advice and guidance on cybersecurity. So just to kind of highlight the work that we're doing there. And if you do want to visit the Cyber Scotland website, cyberscotland.com, you'll find a lot of different pieces of information on cybersecurity. And you may actually have seen one of our more recent initiatives is the Cyber Scotland Did You Ken adverts. They're on STV, and it features comedian Fred Macaulay, where he, in the format of a pretend game show, gives the latest cybersecurity advice and guidance to help improve the cybersecurity of Scotland. So if you do happen to catch us on STV, if you take a picture and you tweet at us, then you might be in the chance of winning some Cyber Scotland goodies that you can see on screen. Just a wee plug there. And again, if you are on Twitter or on LinkedIn, you can check us out on SBRC. We'll be tweeting about the session today, so please interact with us there. But on to the topic of today's presentation, we're going to be talking about cyber exercising. So what do we mean when we talk about cyber exercising? Well, unlike kind of today where I'm just giving a presentation and an opportunity for questions at the end, cyber exercising is very interactive, and it's one of the best ways to help improve your cybersecurity and your cyber resilience. Think of it like when you have an office building and there's a fire drill. You do routine fire drills, you practice what happens when there is a real fire in a simulated environment. You get everyone to evacuate the building, you find out what the response time is, so on and so forth. Cyber exercising is somewhat similar in the sense that you can practice how you respond to an incident in terms of cybersecurity, but it also gives you the opportunity to just openly discuss in a bit of a relaxed format various aspects of cybersecurity, various aspects of your cyber resilience. And it can be done at all sorts of different levels. A lot of people think that when we talk about cybersecurity, we're going to get really technical. A lot of people think they're going to have to tune out because they don't understand. That's absolutely not the case. And hopefully through the course of this morning's session, I can demonstrate to you that cyber exercising is for everyone, and particularly for housing associations across Scotland. There's a unique opportunity coming to you that I'll touch on later on with regards to cyber exercising. So there's a lot of different types of cyber exercising, but one of the most popular here in the UK is what we call exercise in a box. You may have heard of exercise in a box before. It's a toolkit developed by the National Cyber Security Centre. And for those that don't know who the National Cyber Security Centre are, the NCSC, they are the UK government's civil service department in charge of keeping us safe and secure online. They produce a whole lot of advice and guidance about cybersecurity. They have a bunch of different resources. If you are curious at all, their website is ncsc.gov.uk. If you want to go and have a look at them, I would recommend it. They do have a lot of valuable resources. But what I would say is that Exercise in the Box, the toolkit, is a great way to kind of have those cyber exercises. Now, what we've done here in Scotland is we have Exercise in the Box, abbreviated here to EIAB, with partnership with the Scottish Government and SBRC. So Exercise in the Box, as I say, it's a toolkit, so it's designed to be done by yourself. It's got the resources to run a cyber exercise, so you can all kind of sit around the table as a team and go through these exercises. But we did notice a bit of a problem with that here in Scotland, in that we're a bit different in Scotland in terms of we tend to be smaller, our organisations are smaller, and there's maybe only 1 or 2 people maximum in each organisation that has any sort of IT remit, let alone cyber security. So it can make things a bit difficult when you want to get involved in those exercises. So what we've done is the Scottish Government have given SBRC some funding to take Exercise in the Box and deliver it to organisations all across Scotland. And that's what we've been doing for the past 2 years. So we've been taking Exercise in the Box and we've been delivering it. We've been the facilitators to organisations all across Scotland. So how does it work? So each session we have several different companies. We make use of, or when we started, we had to make use of things like Zoom and Teams because If you remember back to August 2020, it wasn't exactly suitable for people to be mixing. We were all in lockdown, so we had to use Zoom and Teams to make it work. But we did that quite well, and we were quite happy with it. So we got 5 or so organisations into a Zoom or a Teams lobby, and we had myself from the SBRC along with some of my ethical hacking team. And what we did was we looked at the scenario, we spoke about it as a group, and then what we did is we split off into the breakout rooms that were available, and then each company or each organisation was paired with a member of the ethical hacking team, and they had a chance to discuss in a bit more of a private way the situations. And we'll look at some of the topics that they cover later on, but just kind of give you an idea of how it works. It lasted for about an hour and a half, and it gave you a real opportunity to talk about all sorts of different aspects of your cybersecurity. It gave you a real opportunity to not just ask questions, but actually explore some questions that you needed to ask, because we have a firm belief at SBRC that there's a lot of people out there that tell you the sorts of questions you need to be asking and tell you what you need to be doing in cybersecurity and saying you need to buy this, you need to do that. We don't believe that that's the way to do things. We want each organisation to identify their own areas that they want to work on, identify their own training that they want to do. You know, it's about your organisation and what works best for you, and that's what we're trying to do with Exercise in the Box. Is it gives everyone the opportunity to discuss what would work best for them and their organisation, what wouldn't work, what would be ideal, what's realistic, and so on and so forth. So that's the kind of aim here. And I said we had to use Teams and Zoom, but since we're out of the pandemic now, we have started to do in-person sessions. So we get a group of organisations together in an event space, we talk them through Exercise in the Box. They're still paired with a member of the ethical hacking team. They sit at tables so that they get that opportunity to work in their own organisation and discuss, but then there's also that opportunity to kind of share experiences, share learning with the wider group of organisations. So we find these sessions really beneficial for everyone. Now, who's it for? So I said we're trying to make these as least technical as we can. So the sessions are for everyone. So what we say is if you have to bring along 5 or so people to a session, pick someone that's maybe from management, pick someone that's from finance, pick someone that's from operations, all sorts of different parts of your organisation, so you get that balance. Don't just send, you know, your whole IT team or anything like that. It's good. It's really good to get a diversity of voices, a diversity of opinions, because it really does make for a really rich discussion. And that's what we're after here. Is there's no right or wrong answers with these scenarios. We want to make sure that you're comfortable and you're happy, and that you're getting the most out of the session. So bring along as many different departments or areas of your organisation as you can to make it that diverse opportunities there and diverse conversations. Again, there's different levels that we're going to look at. So if you are completely not technical at all and you're starting off your cybersecurity journey, maybe you've never even heard of cybersecurity before, there's a scenario for you where we look at the very, very basics. And again, maybe you are familiar with a bit more operations side of things, you know how the business works or the organisation works quite well. There's also a different type of exercise for you. So there's a lot of different aspects and different ways that we can look at cyber exercising here with Exercise in the Box. And just to kind of show you the success that we've seen with Exercise in the Box, this is a little infographic we had made from our sessions that ran up until end of March. We have been running sessions since then, but this is just the last update. And you can see we've had a lot of different events, a lot of different people, a lot of different sectors, and really you can see the success that we have had with the project. And now I think our figures are well up into the 700-800s, and we're hoping to reach 1,000 attendees, 1,000 organisations very, very soon. So we're really, really happy with the success that we've seen through the project. So I mentioned there's kind of different levels that we're looking at. So we call what we call the kind of journey that we're looking at is the cyber exercising journey. So when we talk about the exercising journey, we mean that there's a starting point where if you've got no knowledge at all, you can come along to a session and you can kind of build up that kind of basic knowledge, that basic understanding, and then you can progress on to the higher, or sorry, not higher, but more in-depth topics. They look at specific topics of cybersecurity. So we'll look at them now. So we start off with what we call micro exercises. So this is 4 short, sharp sessions pulled together into one that cover the very basics of cybersecurity, the intros, and the parts that you want to consider if you've not looked at cybersecurity in your organization before. So these are, again, very interactive sessions, but they look at kind of key topics. So we look at passwords, we talk about password security and what makes a good password. We look at why hackers try and get access to your passwords, how they do it, what you can do to stop it, and how you can build up your resilience and improve your passwords. We do a bit of Q&A on what we think makes a good password, and we demonstrate the best password practices and policies that you can have. We then look at phishing, what it is, how you identify phishing emails, how you can see phishing emails and stop them from being successful. We talk about why hackers do phishing, why it's so popular, and the various types of phishing and how they work. We then look at a kind of mini simulation of responding to a ransomware attack. So for those that are unaware, ransomware is a computer virus. It's quite common these days. A computer virus that a hacker will try and put on your computer. It will then lock you out of all of your files, all of your data, all of your information. They lock it so that you can't access it. And then the hacker says, I've got the key to get your files back. If you don't give me £20,000 or whatever the value may be, I'm going to either delete your files permanently or I'm going to publish your files online. So effectively, this hacker is trying to hold your files, your information to ransom. So they want to make you pay there. And so we're trying to, with this little mini scenario, see how you as an organization would respond to an attack like that and how you would deal with that. And there's a lot of different aspects that you may not consider when looking at one of these attacks. And then the final session that we look at is what we call connecting securely. So how do you as an organization securely operate in a remote environment? How do you properly allow organizations or allow your staff to connect to the organization? How does it work? Things like that. So it's a good kind of intro into the kind of hybrid workforce that we see these days and how that will work in terms of cybersecurity and how to do it in an appropriate and accurate way. And that is what we call the micro exercising topic. So as I say, each one is short, sharp and effective. It's designed at the very, very introductory level. So if you've got no kind of background in cybersecurity, or maybe you just need a bit of a refresher, they are designed to be pitched at that level of the basic introductions. Then we move on to the more advanced or in-depth scenarios, I should say, where rather than looking at a multitude of different topics, we look at one topic for the whole hour and a half, and we study them in a bit more detail, and we allow you to kind of properly walk through a simulated situation to give you the opportunity to identify where your weaknesses would be in each different topic. So the first one is what we call working from home. And as you can imagine, this was very popular back at the start of the pandemic. And the working from home scenario is designed to put your organization in a scenario where at a moment's notice, you've been told to work from home. Now, this can apply to what we've seen through the pandemic, but can also apply if you've got an office building and say, for example, there's a flood or a fire, and all of a sudden your office building has not been suitable for purpose. So although, and touch wood, we never will have to experience a pandemic again, it is going to be relevant in the sense that you don't know what kind of situations could happen with your office. Even if the office maybe needs to get renovated or something that's maybe less serious, it does allow you to kind of practice how your organisation would work from home. And I think, like a lot of organisations these days, working from home is still a part of our lives. It's still a balance. So we have a hybrid environment in a lot of cases. So it is still quite relevant. But what it does is it looks at what your organisation does in the event that you have to work from home. And we've got a little example of what the scenario looks at here. So this is one of the sections in the working from home scenario. So you can see it reads, employees in your organisation need to work remotely at short notice, and in order to continue working, they require access to the IT services used by your organisation. Some of your employees do not have access to any computer equipment issued by your organisation, such as laptops or tablets, or do not have a reliable internet connection available at home. So it's trying to get you to start that discussion of, well, what do staff need to have access to? What do we have in place, and how do we do it? And it's a good way to kind of prompt those discussions around working from home. I will say as well that these tools and these resources are developed by the National Cybersecurity Centre, as I mentioned. So sometimes they miss the mark in terms of the language. I feel personally, sometimes it maybe is a wee bit more technical than it needs to be, but the kind of uniqueness of the resources that we have at the SBRC is that we can, although because we're funded by the Scottish Government, we can't change the resources. We can explain it, and we can kind of talk you through what they mean, make the language a bit more understandable by everyone, because there is a real tendency in cyber and IT to make everything seem really alien and almost gatekeep it by making language really complicated, and there's no need for that. And SBRC, we do try and break down some of those barriers that we see with IT and cyber, and this is a perfect example of that. But we look at these, these discussion points, and we would ask your organisation in one of these sessions, for example, what would you do in this situation? How would you get your employees' laptops? Do you have a way to kind of purchase them and send them to their homes? Can they use personal laptops? Do you have a bring your own device policy? How does that work? And it gives that conversation around about how working from home would work in your organisation. And as you can imagine, at the start of the pandemic, when we started doing this, the answers and the discussions were very different if we were to run one now. We see that now organisations are a lot more mature in their working from home policies, but there's still things they may have missed, and that's what working from home tries to identify. Another scenario we have is what we call the digital supply chain, and again, the wording for this is maybe a bit more complex than it needs to be, but effectively this scenario looks at the fact that businesses now, organisations now, very interconnected, very reliant on the internet and our wider supply chains. It's often the case that you outsource things, and that's absolutely fine. That's the way that the world works now. But what we need to consider when we outsource is that we're outsourcing a product or a service, but we're not outsourcing that risk. So even if your IT is managed by another company, if your payroll, your accounts, whatever it may be, are managed by another company or organisation, the risk still sits with you. So how do you have discussions with your suppliers, with your supply chain about cybersecurity, about what they would do in the event of an incident, and so on and so forth? That's what digital supply chain looks at. So you can see here an example of digital supply chain. We can see that in this situation, after a recruitment process or a procurement process, you've selected a third-party supplier to integrate their system within your organisational processes. Several months later, the system maintained by the third-party supplier has an outage, and no one in your organisation is able to access it. So, for example, say you've got an HR system to book holidays, report sick payments, things like that. In this instance, there's been an outage with that supplier, that organisation. No one in your organisation is able to access it, and you're not really sure what to do. So this kind of gives you the opportunity to discuss, well, how would we get in contact with our supplier? What do we do? Is there an agreement in place of how would they work with us to resolve any issues that there were in place, and do we have backup solutions in place so that say we don't have access to staff holidays for 3 weeks while the system is down, do we have that recorded elsewhere? You know, it kind of looks at all sorts of different aspects of how you deal with that outsourcing process, and talking about cybersecurity as a conversation with your suppliers and your different providers and so on, because there is a general assumption that they just deal with it. And in a lot of cases, that's not true. And so it's good to have those conversations about the kind of cyber element, and also in general kind of business continuity senses as well, just so that things run smoothly in the event of any sort of incident. So that's kind of what supply chain looks at there. And then finally, the most popular one that we've seen is what we call phishing that leads to ransomware. So this is a scenario that is kind of like your fire drill that I spoke about earlier. This is the scenario that looks at what happens if your staff member has received a phishing email. What happens if your staff member clicks on that phishing email and they've opened a link, they've downloaded a file, and it's led to what we call ransomware. Remember, that's the computer virus that locks you out of your files and holds your files to ransom. How do you as an organization deal with it? There's a whole host of things you need to consider, from the actual IT side of things. How do you maintain your business operations? But then there's also things like your legal obligations. You know, if you've had a data breach, if they're threatening to leak or publish information, then that could mean that you've had a data breach. You need to report to the Information Commissioner's Office. If you've been a victim of a crime, then you should be reporting it to Police Scotland. There's all sorts of different aspects there. So ransomware, that scenario makes you look at that. And you can see in this example here, this is midway through the attack. So after several hours, users have started having trouble opening documents and files. A message pops up on the computer where the infected software was installed, indicating it has been infected with ransomware. The ransomware has encrypted all of your organization's business critical data so that you can no longer access them, and is demanding £20,000 in Bitcoin to recover the data. So you can see this is exactly the kind of situation we've spoken about, where your files are no longer able to be accessed by your own organization, and so you're not sure exactly what to do, and they're demanding, the hackers are demanding that you pay them £20,000 in Bitcoin. So there's all sorts of considerations you have to make there. So that's what ransomware looks like, and it's unfortunately a very popular type of cyber attack we've seen these days. So it is something that every organization should consider. And in general, your incident response, what would you do if you were hit with any sort of cybersecurity incident? How would you respond? And so how do you continue your business operations? So there's all sorts of different things that ransomware can get you to think about. And as I say, it is our most popular scenario. So I would, it might be worthwhile putting some members of your organization in that session. Also, as part of the Exercise in the Box project, we have what we call a follow-up consultancy. So after you've gone through one of these sessions with your organization, what you can then do is at a later date, book an hour's time with a member of our ethical hacking team, where you can talk through these sessions. You can talk through the results to your exercise. You can talk about what you discovered about your organization, where you felt you were your areas of strength where you felt like your areas of weakness were. Again, this is completely free as part of the project, and it gives you that opportunity to kind of think about what you've learned and maybe ask for any advice on how to proceed further. So it's definitely a worthwhile opportunity there. The whole project, the whole Exercise in the Box experience with SBRC, it gives you a lot of time, to discuss with the kind of experts in cybersecurity. So it's a very worthwhile project. But don't just take our word for it. I'm sure me speaking about it, you think, well, definitely Declan wants to be promoting Exercise in the Box. But what we've got here is, I just want to read you some testimonials from some individuals that have gone through Exercise in the Box. So we've got some of these here just now. So this is from YouthLink Scotland, where he's saying that the Scottish Business Resilience Centre's Exercise in the Box session was hugely beneficial to our strategic thinking around cybersecurity. The session was informative, engaging and fun, and also a good opportunity to compare your organisation's level of preparedness with peers from across the sector. And that's something that I didn't maybe touch on there, is that we do try and make it a bit more enjoyable. A lot of people think cybersecurity is all about doom and gloom, and we try and kind of change that. It doesn't have to be the end of the world. And I know some people in cybersecurity do want you to think that it's the end of the world, but it's not at the end of the day. We want to make it just a part of your organisation, but these sessions, we want to make sure that you do have fun. You don't leave feeling terrified, you leave feeling confident, you leave feeling like you've got a plan in place and things along that nature. You can see another organisation here, Scottish Ballet. Exercise in the Box is a highly informative and constructive training session that allowed our company to hear best practice across sectors, test our policies and theory in a safe space, and take away some real practical tools to progress as next steps internally in the upskilling and cyber resilience of our people. Again, talking about the fact that we want to make it accessible to everyone. We really do want to focus on the people as well as the IT side, because people are just as important, and if not, they are your most valuable asset in your organisation. So we really do want to focus there. Here's testimonials from a housing association saying the Exercise in the Box session provided by the Scottish Business Resilience Centre helped us look more objectively at our approach to cybersecurity within the home working environment. I recommend the Exercise in the Box workshops to any other organisation. A few more testimonials we've got here. This one from the NHS, the SBRC's Exercise in the Box session is informative, actionable, and the real world based cyber scenarios are incredibly useful for a range of roles in any organisation. What we liked most about it is the non-technical nature of the materials. Literally anyone in your organisation will find value in taking part in these sessions. Again, emphasising that key message, we really do hope that you come along to the session and you can understand, you feel like you're it's not going over your head, you're leaving with that confidence that you've got that plan in place going forward. Finally, I recently attended the Exercise in the Box in-person session on ransomware. It's very well organised and a facilitator was provided for each organisation. The facilitator was great. She helped up to see how prepared we are for a ransomware attack, discussed scenarios we had not thought of, and gave us ideas on how to further protect ourselves. I would highly recommend this session. So we've spoken a lot about Exercise in the Box, and hopefully these testimonials here are, if you've not believed me myself, that they are encouraging you to look at taking part. So how do you take advantage? So you can visit our website at sbrcentre.co.uk, and you can see that little link there saying Exercise in the Box. So our sessions are coming to an end this month, but we are very, very shortly going to be hearing about what the project will be looking like over the next year or so. So what you can do in the meantime is go onto their website, click on that Exercise in the Box link on the front page, and there's a little register your interest box. If you want to attend an Exercise in the Box session, please fill out that register your interest box or form there. We'll take your name and your email, and then as soon as our Exercise in the Box sessions are continuing on, probably around about August time, end of August, once we hear, we'll let you know, and we'll invite you along to a session. And we'd love to have you along at one of these sessions, whether it be online, whether it be in person. We have them, we've been running them all around the country. As I say, they work quite well in person and online, but if that is something that you think is interesting to you after today's session, please do click on that link on our website, sbrcentre.co.uk, and you can register your interest for an Exercise in a Box session, and we'd love to have you along. While you're on the website as well, you can have a look at all of the other resources that we have through the Scottish Business Resilience Centre. We do have a lot of different projects ongoing. we are having an upcoming executive education session, if that is something that may interest you. It's in partnership with a lot of different organisations and a lot of different key individuals in the cybersecurity industry, including the former Chief Executive of the National Cybersecurity Centre, Dr. Kieran Martin. So definitely worthwhile attending that if that is an option to you. So please do check out that on our website, as well as the various other projects we have. We have the ability for you to become a member of the SBRC and get training, anything that you may need. We also have a bunch of different resources on our website as well, so please do make use of them. And one of the projects in particular I do want to highlight is the SBRC Incident Response Helpline. So that is a number that's on screen, you can see there, that operates from 9 to 5 on weekdays. And effectively what this is an ability or an option for you to phone that number if you have gone through a cyber incident. It's completely free to use, a Scottish Government funded initiative. You get put through to our incident response manager, as well as members of our ethical hacking team, and they can help you triage any incident you may have. We can offer the best advice and guidance, and we can point you in the right direction in terms of your reporting obligations. Like I mentioned earlier, the ICO, Police Scotland, whoever you need to report to. We like to think of it as the emergency services for cybersecurity, so we do hope you never need to phone it, but it is there if you need it. And again, that number is on screen. Definitely recommend bookmarking that, operating from weekdays 9 to 5. There's also an email address, you can find that on our website if you've got a general inquiry as well. But yeah, that's definitely a project worth highlighting. And also just keep in touch with us at the SBRC. We're working with the Scottish Federation of Housing Associations on improving the cybersecurity of the housing associations across Scotland. So we'd love to hear from you. Please get in touch if there's anything we can help you out with, and I'm sure Gary can as well help facilitate that if there's anything that you may need from either of us. But that brings us to the end of the presentation, and we can move on to the Q&A session. So we'll start taking questions, I guess, from the chat, and if you want to raise your hand, but I will give an opportunity for the recording to be stopped, so you can feel free to share things you wouldn't want on the recording.